find a love for what you're doing, because if you don't love it, nothing else really, like, you can't fabricate the rest of it. I can't give you 6 points to do something amazing that you don't love, especially if it's involved in worship.
Hey, I'm Andrea Olson. I've been leading worship and training worship leaders for nearly 20 years, and my mission is to support worship leaders just like you in volunteer-supported ministries because I know what it's like. I've been there. It's amazing, but you have a big job, and sometimes you might feel a little bit alone. But I'm here to remind you that you aren't. We'll cover spiritual and leadership growth, practical resources, and get encouragement from other worship leaders from all over the world. I truly want to see you lead from the overflow, not the overwhelm. So grab a cup of tea or coffee and join me. Welcome to the Overflow Worship Podcast. Well, I am so excited today because I have a special guest with me, and it's been really fun to get to know him over the last, year and a half or so. And so I'm excited to welcome Ryan Dahl from PraiseCharts. Welcome, Ryan. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I'm sitting out in my patio enjoying the beautiful sun and loving getting a chance to talk to you today.
Yeah, it looks beautiful there. Just loving summer, I'm sure.
Totally. It was hot. It was like, well, we're in Celsius in Canada with 38 degrees Celsius, which is probably well over 100 or something like that. So it doesn't happen here like that very often.
Yeah.
But, it's like green grass, trees, flowers, and we've got a little barn over there. So I just like the nature life.
Yes. So peaceful. And you're in BC, right?
Yep. Beautiful British Columbia. That's our province.
Yes, I love British Columbia. I have not spent a lot of time there, but when I've been there, it's just stunning. So
it is totally.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, would you tell our listeners, for those who maybe don't know much about you or about PraiseCharts? I mean, I feel like PraiseCharts is like a household worship name, which seriously, it's amazing what you've done, but bring everybody up to speed. Tell us about you and about PraiseCharts.
Sure. Well, like, the big news of this year is that it's been 25 years. Actually, in October of 1998, we're talking almost before the internet. I mean, the wheel was barely invented back then. It's just so much has happened since 1998. And so that's 25 years ago. And so we're heading into a season of just reflecting a lot. Lots of gratitude, lots of memories. I've raised 4 kids through the whole generation of PraiseCharts and been married to my wife. We'll be married 30 years next year. So there's so many like pockets of my life that sort of converge in around PraiseCharts, which is kind of like, my baby. You know what I mean by that.
Yes.
So it's just, I have sort of shepherded this thing along and brought a great team. We probably work with about 25 or 30 people on a regular basis, but there's a core team here in British Columbia that helps with some of the management and administration, and I love to work with them, plus a few of our arrangers in Nashville and down around there. So yeah, it's a season of memories and just thinking, remember how it used to be. Like, imagine how it was before you had Google, right? There was just Yahoo and Excite and bot.net and all these simpatico words that some of you may have even forgotten. Yes. And there was no Facebook, there was no iPhone. There was barely laptops. It was all so foreign. So, PraiseCharts actually started, I was literally photocopying sheet music, licking envelopes, writing addresses on those envelopes. Then we had this big innovation to put those pieces of paper into fax machines, started faxing music, full orchestrations all around the country. The paper would get stuck in the fax machine, so we had to, uncrinkle it and all that kind of stuff. So very, very early days of technology. And nowadays, of course, it's so much of the technology we live with is common. In fact, now we have to kind of hold it back and make sure it doesn't take over the world. So
Yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah.
so
Wow.
that's one of the exciting things. I'm a father of four. I have two daughter-in-laws and two grandkids, which I am so in love with, and
Mm-hmm.
get to spend lots of time with them. And I'm very much like, my personality is, I don't really believe in work-life balance. I just believe in life. So like, all of my life is my life. It all sort of fits in different ways. And I'm not saying this is for everyone, but it is kind of for me. Um, Family, work, ministry, worship, music. It's all this big wash, I guess. And I just kind of like live in that. I love it
Mm-hmm.
all, integrate it all. I certainly take lots of time to not think about praise charts,
Mm-hmm.
but then again, I'm always thinking about it. Like, it's always in the back of my mind,
Mm-hmm.
just waiting for that another idea or a song or just a fix or a
Mm-hmm.
comment. Or it's always there in the shower, when I wake up, when I'm sitting on the couch late at night. So it's
Yeah.
just the life of, I guess, the entrepreneurial life. So I've really
Yes.
enjoyed that. And
Yeah.
so that's a
Wow.
little bit about me in general.
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
amazing. And I
Hmm.
mean, what you were doing in 1998 was was cutting edge, right? Like, it was like
Hmm.
this concept. And what I took away from even our very first conversation was just like your passion for resourcing in as many ways as possible, right? So like,
Hmm.
as many
Hmm.
people, if they need choral, if they need this type of chart, they need orchestrations, they need, and
Hmm.
that is just such a gift because, as you well know, like, I mean, I don't know statistically speaking what it's like in Canada, but in the US, I mean, 90+% of churches are under 500 people, and
Yeah.
they're all vast denominations, right?
Yeah.
And so being able to provide something that's really useful and accessible for people is
Yeah.
just phenomenal. So
Yeah.
I yeah, I love that, and I love the journey and the going from licking envelopes and stamps to now it's
Yeah.
all online. And I mean, I
Hmm.
remember using praise charts when I was first leading worship. I started on staff at a church in 2005, and
Wow.
I'm pretty sure that as soon as I knew that you guys existed, like, that's where I started, because there was nobody else to
Hmm.
help me get the charts I needed. The church had like printed sheet music that was like copied from songbooks, which,
Hmm.
is not great to to be doing.
Right.
um,
Right.
and
Yeah.
so, migrating them over. So anyways, just
Mm.
celebrating with you. And, one question that just popped into my head as you were talking was, there's probably a lot of people like me and like you walking through ministry, and maybe they're in the early days. They've got kids, they're married, they're maybe working another job and doing
Yeah.
ministry. And what, like, guidance or tips or advice do you have for those people who are kind of feeling like they're in the trenches, drowning a little bit, trying to spin all the plates? And,
Yeah.
you alluded to it, the what works for you is not work-life balance. But let's dive into that a little more, because I think that's really
Okay.
relevant for people.
Well, I'll tell you, this is the first thought that comes to mind when I say how much I'm not into as much the work-life balance, is because I really try to prioritize doing things that I love, and
Mm,
then I pour myself into those. So it feels like, when I'm so heavily invested into things that I'm not that passionate about, or I feel very obligated to do, and then my life is just full of obligations, then I really want to be like, okay, I need to put a boundary around that and not do that and not
mm,
think about that. But so one of the kind of ways of life, I guess, that I've adopted is trying to think about who I am uniquely, what are unique gifts that I have that are almost like to the nerdy point. Like, it's so unique, nobody quite likes to edit chord charts like I do, for example. I mean, that's
mm,
way behind the deep engines of praise charts, is my love for the precision of chords and notes, and even fonts and spacing and phrasing and all of that. That's why our chord charts are so like precise, because I just love that stuff. I can't wait to wake up in the morning at 6 in the morning and sit on my bed and just edit a chord chart. Now,
Hmm.
that wouldn't be for most people in this world, but I've kind of like allowed myself to just discover this is who Ryan is, and then kind of went with that. So, and even on the worship side, I just want you all to know I am one of you. I'm not a paid person in my church, but I'm like begging them for opportunities to be like, even just literally this last week, and I just led worship last week, but for this week I was checking on Planning Center looking for, is there any openings where one of our campuses might need a piano player? And then I,
Hmm.
text them and I'm like, I'm there. I'm willing to play. I just have a free 10 hours this weekend, but I want to dedicate that to playing piano if I could, because I love like that piano. It's a Nord that you're sitting in front of, right? I've
Yes,
got one of
yes.
those. I love my Nord. I love the Lord. I love my Nord.
Yes.
I love the just finding that right sound, dialing in the pad a little bit, and it just makes my insides kind of glow. So when you start to discover these unique things about yourself, I just find it can start to become less exhausting,
Hmm.
and that's just the way I guess that I live. So my big advice for any of you like listening is you gotta like pay attention to who you are, and don't try to be like somebody else. Don't try to
Hmm.
sound like somebody else.
Hmm.
Like even last week in particular, our band normally plays with multi-tracks and all that, and I said I don't want multi-tracks. I just want the click, and I want to sound like who we are. Like,
Hmm.
and nothing against multi-tracks. We sell them and make them and all of that, but
Hmm.
it's kind of a bit of a theme in my life is I want them to hear you playing the electric guitar the way
Hmm.
you're playing it, because that's who we are, and let's
Yeah.
express ourselves. um, and in so many places in life, I just feel like we need to give ourselves the freedom to go, you know what? I've got something to offer
Hmm.
this world. And I don't need to just mirror or pattern or mimic
Hmm.
other people uh, all the time, because that just can become stressful. When you live inside somebody else's shell, you're going to wake up stressed and go to sleep
Hmm.
exhausted. That's
Yeah.
the and I'm
Wow.
finding like I'm not living in that world. I can't wait to get up. I love Mondays. I'm sort of a little bit don't know what to do with myself on Saturdays because I lose the rhythm of, all the Monday to Friday things, and I love that so much, but I do find things to do. But yeah, people like worship leaders, we need to model just God made me. I am unique. I'm just going to be me, and
Hmm.
and then let the joy and fresh breath of air, kind of air breath, whatever, flow out of that. It's
Hmm.
almost like it even goes behind the songs. You can sing a great song, but if you can put like a zestful life in behind that song,
Hmm.
like if you sing gratitude, but you're actually feeling grateful before you
Yeah.
sing it, what a difference would that make, right?
Yeah.
So it's more than just picking great songs and having the
Hmm.
great chords. You've got to somehow line up the uniqueness of yourself. So,
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many things, Andrea, about praise charts. I could take you into, deep intricacies that are kind of an expression of my own personal things that I've put into it, things that I care about, things that I've taken an interest in, and I've sort of invented praise charts as an expression of this Ryan Dahl who was stressed out in 1998 leading
Hmm.
worship because he was didn't trying to find songs and trying to find charts and trying to like appeal to a broad generation of people. There's all these things that I was trying to solve, and it sort of flowed out of what now is praise charts. And now the funny thing is like I use praise charts when I'm leading worship. I go into my site, I'm looking at lists, I'm looking at songs, I'm editing the charts, i'm
Hmm.
i'm thinking about keys, I'm looking at vocal ranges, all these things that you all have to do. I'm the same guy. The only difference is maybe I have a admin account so I can go in behind, but even still it's
Yeah.
just like uh, so there you go.
Wow, that's amazing. And, I
Hmm.
think I love what you said about uniqueness and us leaning into that, because I think whether we realize it or not, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to kind of look externally and like, if this one church or this one leader or this one thing that I'm seeing equals success, right? And success
Yeah,
in ministry is like reaching souls, right? Like
yeah,
you're seeing like vibrancy and growth, then I should model that. And I think that's such a tricky thing to
yeah,
to start to adopt, because then, like you said, we're kind of trying to be something that we're not.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
would imagine, like, I've never really thought about it this way before, but is that kind of the heart and soul behind so many different types of resources and praise charts, is so that people can find and use what helps them be uniquely them?
Yeah, yeah, it totally is. It's a bit reflects some of the inventive spirit of myself, and also me just like watching other musicians. For example, like we have this free resource on Praise Charts called Stage Charts, and the heartbeat behind that, they're just chords, no lyrics, nothing, just the chord sequences. So that came from me being on stage and seeing my bass player writing out in a big felt pen just the basic chords of the songs at his feet, like not in front of him, like this, so you can't see, because he wanted to pay attention to, he wanted his eyes up and he wanted to like be engaged with the band, but just have a few little cheats that he could just like sneak a look
Mm,
at. So, and I'm super inspired by wanting to pursue freedom as a musician. Like we have a bedrock of how we do a song, but then let's be willing to listen and flex. And if we repeat the chorus or extend a bar or do some things like that, how can we express something,
mm,
in this moment of whatever that Sunday morning is? So the stage charts are kind of a collective of getting people to learn about song chord progressions and repetitive patterns
mm,
and memorizing songs and things like that. So
mm,
that's one example. The funny thing is, we give it away for free, and it's all to teach people not to need the sheet music. So I'm like
mm.
defeating my own company. But my my desire for people to become musicians is greater than wanting to sell them music. That
Mm,
I want you to maybe start with a chord chart or a lead sheet, learn how the melody works and all of that, but eventually get to a place where it's like the bird just flies out of the cage and just
mm.
starts to flap, right? That's how it is as musicians. And
Yeah.
it's so exciting when you can just see on your sheet music, like I did on last Sunday morning. It's just a G, C, D, E minor, but then I feel like I got so much I can do with that now, because I've
Mm,
I've learned my personality in those four chords,
yeah.
and then feeling the rhythm of the band. So that's
Mm,
kind of an example of lots of different little products that help people come alive on
yeah.
Sunday mornings. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. That's so cool. So
Hmm.
just one little like kind of side tangent, because you are a piano player and because,
Hmm.
you love it, and so do I.
I
So I
do.
always love to
Yes.
geek out about piano
That's
stuff all day long.
aha,
Um,
for sure.
but I get a lot of questions from people who are like wanting to grow as a keyboard player in the worship context. Maybe they had some classical training, but there's a disconnect between
Hmm.
that and reading the music, and then having just chords and trying to improvise or trying to fill in the gaps. So do you have like one or two tips that you give to keyboard players who are wanting to grow in that? Like, here's your chord chart, but here's some things you can do to begin the process of growing in your ability to feel that freedom that you just talked about. We are going to take a quick pause from today's episode because I have a free gift for you. Leading worship is a big deal. And as much as the responsibility thrills you, it also can be a little daunting, right? And I know because I've been there. As someone who's led worship for more than 20 years, I know how stressful prepping for the weekend set can be, because let's face it, Sunday's always coming. So I've developed a checklist that I go through every single time I'm preparing a set list for an upcoming service. and it really helps a lot. I feel confident, I feel prepared. It saves me time because let's face it, volunteer, you're probably spending precious evening time working because you're just trying to fit it all in. And so this helps you work smart and saves you time. And most importantly, it just helps me make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. It's helped me for 20 years and I'm giving it to you for free. So click the link in the show notes or head on over to overflowworship.com/setlist checklist to get yours today. All right, back to today's episode.
Yeah. It's funny. I can remember a few months ago, I had just led worship for this group of men. There's, I don't know, 15 or 20 of them. And I had a guy come up to me afterwards and he just said the same thing you did is, can you show me, how did you just do that? Like, it sounded so great, but you seem to not be locked into your music. And I had him put on his iPhone and I sat there at the piano for 7 minutes and I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you a crash course in playing music by ear here. And so if you want to look up in Facebook, I think it's probably open. You just got to find, or I can give you the link. I'll find it. But it would be, I made a couple of little videos where I'm just sitting at the piano after worship. And it just came from someone coming up to me and saying, could you just show me a few little things? And then we videoed it. So a lot of it is based on, comprehending repeating patterns. That's a big thing. If you think in terms of like a C chord and then an F chord, and it's almost like if I was talking to you and my brain was trying to compute every word. That's not how I talk. I talk to you in phrases and sentences, and I don't even think about the individual words. That would be super stressful for me and not feel very conversational. So music is like that, where you've got to start to learn these repeating patterns. And then when you come to them, you're going to start to discover in song after song after song, it's all kind of the same thing with slight variances. And you can make each song sound different, but it's not so stressful on your brain because you're locking into patterns, just like our conversation. I've never had this conversation with anyone in the world as I'm talking to you, but I've used all these words and all these phrases over and over and over, right? So it's not stressful talking to you because it's like a language. So yeah, there's even in PraiseCharts, if you would look, we've got some pad tracks that we had made, and I'm pretty sure they're all for free. They're all based on common progressions like 1-4-6-5 or 1-6-4-5-1. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you should. You should know what I'm saying when I say 1-2-4-5-6, and because that's worth knowing. And we could do a whole talk if you want all about that, but that would be for another podcast. You got to kind of, and then maybe even grab some of the free stage charts from PraiseCharts. You're going to see the chords only. Now go to Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, listen to the song and see if you can hear the chords moving. That's how you train your ear to, and your heart to kind of get in touch with the music. So I would encourage that. Sometimes when I'm driving in the car and listening to worship music, I will in my head call out the chord names. I'll be like, oh, that's a 1. They're going to the 6. I bet you they're going to the 4 after this because they did just before. And it's just like, what else are you going to do when you're in traffic? So why not train your brain to see if it can recognize what's going on behind songs? And I'm telling you, it's not that difficult. Like Gratitude and, is probably a 4-chord song. There's not many options, but it's such an incredible song, just as an example. So there's a few tips. I just made them up here. But.
Well, that's years of experience speaking right there. That's amazing. And it's like, I mean, a lot of times I think people think, okay, there's there's some trick on the piano, right? Like there's some trick that I don't know that I need to learn. And it's like, it's really just experience and taking the time and like almost reverse engineering things. Like you're saying, like, okay,
Yeah.
a lot of it's at the piano because we have to muscle memory and we have, we got to learn the things,
Yeah.
but it's also work backwards, go listen to the song and see if you can figure it out because there's
Yeah.
so much value in that. I love that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's so clear that you just love resourcing people and you want to make it as accessible as possible and easy as
Mm-hmm.
possible. And you've got some pretty cool ways that you're doing that at PraiseCharts now
Yes.
and some maybe upcoming ways. So tell us about that because it's pretty
Yeah,
exciting.
for sure. Well, PraiseCharts has been like a slow progression to trying to think how to make music stress-free to get and affordable and still copyright, legitimate and legal and all of that. So incrementally over the last 25 years, we've tried different things. Even around 20 years ago, we introduced the prepaid credit system. So you could buy credits, get a discount, and then use those. But then there's all the oh, I don't have enough credits, and oh, I can't afford, and I have credits left over, and now I don't know what to do with them. And there's always things, and so I'm always thinking at 4 a.m. when I get up, well, how could we solve that, or what could we do? And now living in the Spotify, Apple Music kind of world where most of us have a subscription to something where we just don't even think about buying music anymore. It just flows. It's like air. You don't pay for air. You just breathe it. Music has become like that. So I wanted even PraiseCharts to become like that. And we just introduced our subscription system just a couple of months ago, and we are seeing an overwhelming response from so many churches. I can see specifically when I look at my little data reports that they only bought 2 songs last year, but then now they've just subscribed to an annual subscription because it's like the light bulb went off and they were like, oh, now this will work for me. And now when you have a subscription, it's just like you can go to PraiseCharts like I can go to PraiseCharts, like you own it. That's the whole idea, right? You just go and swim in it and be like, well, I could do this song, or how about this song? And now your problem on Sunday is gonna be there's too many songs. I want to do them all. I need to like pare this list down because I just love it,
Yeah. Yes.
So I'm wanting to give all of you that experience for like literally $10 a month. It's a couple cups of coffee, and you can have dozens or whatever every month, just a constant flow, way more than you would need. And then we applied that to piano vocal charts, even up to orchestrations. We're trying to push that even into multi-tracks in the future. So it all sometimes it's not all available right away because we're trying to figure out all the copyright logistics in the background.
Sure.
But and then the other thing, which isn't live yet, but it's coming this fall, is what's called PraiseCharts Team. And that's so that you can feel like if you are a choir or an orchestra or you got a larger team and you just want all of them to have direct access to PraiseCharts like they own it. I think that should be my slogan, is like you own it. So
I like that.
I like it.
That's good. Yeah.
So now for just the price that you're paying, which is as a worship pastor or worship leader, you can go to your worship team and say, okay, folks, now you can all go in the PraiseCharts and swim around all this music that we have accumulated. And then you're going to watch the musicianship of your church elevate. I'm even hoping that we'll have versions of this team so it even goes beyond your team, and it could even be like parents might come to you and go, I got my 10-year-old in piano lessons. I want him going into PraiseCharts and downloading the piano music for gratitude because he wants to play it. So that when he's 14, he's going to join the youth band. And then when he's 16, he's going to be like ripe for your adult team. I'm just making this up, but maybe they're on your. So I'd kind of like your whole church to have the opportunity through your worship pastor. You could be like the greatest hero in your church to go, guys, I just landed on a gold mine, and
Hmm.
it's here for us to use and to
Yeah.
grow. So so that's kind of like, you can see my the heartbeat for me is, I don't want you to think about copyright or copies or legal. Like, it's not that those things don't matter. I just don't want you to have to think about
Yeah.
those. You can just know we've thought about it,
Hmm.
and I don't want you to have to think also about, oh, I read music, but I can't read a lead sheet, but I need a chord chart, but no, I need the written out piano part. It will be
Hmm.
more like, well, it's all there. I just pick
Yeah.
the type of chart that I read,
Hmm.
and they're all doing the same song, the same arrangement.
Yeah.
So there, that's an approach as well. So that's
Yeah.
kind of stuff we're
Wow.
spinning around in the fall.
Hmm.
It's probably been 2 or 3 years of deep, deep. You should see my development manager's computer when I poke my head in his office, and I just see two screens full of code, and he's deep in it and deep
Yeah.
in meetings with developers and programmers from all over the world for months and months and months, trying to make this thing work. And
Wow.
so that's kind of what the background looks like. Yeah.
Hmm. That's incredible. What a gift this is to people, because I mean, I see it all the time. I hear it all the time, where it's like, even for a worship leader who's wanting to meet their people where they're at, but they actually need a different type of chart for each
Right. Yeah.
person. Like, well, our piano player is so great and sweet, but she does not read charts, and she wants
Yeah.
to learn, but she's not there yet. And so
Yeah.
to be able to have that resource, to get the same arrangement, so you know that, like, oh, they went to the five all at the same
Hmm.
time. That passing
Exactly.
chord, happened
Hmm.
all together.
Hmm.
And that's just huge. But the other thing that just, I mean, I was going to be like, well, I'm sold, because I've got a 12-year-old daughter who plays guitar, and she's on the youth worship team. And it's like,
Yes.
right now, because I'm me and I have resources and stuff, like, I'm
Yes.
doing all the charts for her. But what about all the kids who don't have that? And to be
Yeah.
able to have, like, oh, the church has this resource, like,
Yeah.
all the youth kids can just hop in. It's not like they're not tech savvy. Like,
I
they,
know.
they can
Yeah.
just hop in and grab it. I love it. You've
Yeah.
got to be so
Yeah.
excited about that, Ryan. That's
I am
awesome.
really, well, now even that you're speaking it back to me, you're selling me on it, and I'm like, yeah, that's actually it. Is, let's even get beyond the just the worship team, and get kids. Like, what if your child came to you on a Tuesday morning and said, "Mom, I just found this new song. Like, I
Mm,
love this song. Can we
yeah.
do this song at our
Yes.
church? What if we could reverse engineer worship so that
Mm,
it was like it was coming from the kids who are discovering stuff, and then,
yeah.
floating up?
Yeah.
That
That's
would be
amazing.
cool. So,
Well, and I mean, just from a parent's lens, like, this is kind of an aside, but it's a big deal. I'm not worried about giving my kid that login. You know what I mean? Like,
no, no,
I'm not worried about songs they're going to stumble on.
right. Yeah,
And so
no,
that's
exactly.
fantastic. It's like, here, I literally don't care. You play all the songs, go.
Right. Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing. I love it. So, you mentioned something before we hit record about
Hmm.
the choral world that you're diving into,
Hmm.
and I mean, that is, it's everywhere. Like
Hmm.
choir is such a huge anchor and huge, part of
Yeah.
churches. So tell us a little bit about that, because that's really
Hmm.
exciting.
Yes. Well, the choral world, in the publishing world that I live in, choral has definitely gone through a bit of a metamorphosis, even in the last couple of years. Like, if COVID affected anyone in the music
Mm,
publishing world, it was choral, because suddenly
yeah.
choirs could not congregate, and
Mm,
it wasn't like just for a couple of weeks. We're talking
mm,
years, and not all choral companies were even able to survive that.
yeah.
We were just getting into choral when COVID hit,
Okay.
so in some ways we could have backed out and
Hmm.
gone away, but we decided, no, let's keep pressing deeper into this, because we were looking towards, getting on the backside of that worldwide event, which I feel
Hmm.
like we're now there. Now choirs are starting to certainly come back that was part of it. But the other part of it is I always want to like change something or make something better or give it a bit of a fresh sound or something like that. And I felt like the choral sound needed an upgrade. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
say this in a way that's very respectful of all my choral,
Yes.
publishers out there. But I wanted your choral demo to feel like it was almost on par with Star Wars or Disney or, just like that symphonic kind of soul impactful strings and just a kind of a modern sound.
Yeah.
So I found an arranger and we stuck our necks out back in July, went into the studio. We're working with Travis Cottrell and we released this first batch of 5 songs, which I'm excited. I was telling you that
Yeah.
we're still in the middle of August and I'm seeing trends that this little 5-song EP will become the best-selling project in the history of PraiseCharts. I've
Wow.
never seen, like, we don't typically sell that much Christmas music in August. That's not been in October, November, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But and then I didn't share this with you, Andrea, I don't think, but just today, like literally I woke up this morning and my arranger producer, Mason Brown, he sent me the first track of our Easter project that we are doing. And I listened to it. I was like, this is like Titanic meets worship, It just
Wow.
has that feel, remember in Titanic where they're standing on the edge of the boat and got the, flying through it,
Yes.
that kind of
Yes.
emotive Celine Dion kind of, well, I'm not saying it sounds like exactly like Celine Dion, but it's just got that emotive kind of full symphonic sound that and fun thing is we're finding a lot of churches are picking up our Christmas project and getting the tracks so that they can have a bit of an upgraded sound
Mm-hmm.
on their Sunday mornings regardless of the size of their church. So some people will be able to replicate this with their own band and orchestra. Some might need a little help or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, but it's an Easter project. And the song that I got this morning, the demo, is called A Moment, which means that we attach some really well written, creatively written narration that kind of
Mm-hmm.
goes in behind. If you listen to the song Behold, which is a Phil Wickham song from last Christmas, we did a
Mm-hmm.
Behold moment and merged that with Oh Holy Night. It's like a whole experience just to listen to it. All the different musical places that it goes. It's on Spotify, so if anyone wants to listen, go for it. The whole
Mm-hmm.
project is there. We did another arrangement of O Come, Emmanuel, which has got this like dark symphonic pop sound, which
Hmm.
you think dark. Why are you bringing darkness into the church? But O Come, Emmanuel is kind of, it's in that minor sound
Yeah.
and it's that angsty kind of waiting for someone to come and save us. So we tried to mimic that in musically. And it's risky. Musically, it does not sound like your typical choral demo.
Hmm.
So I didn't know if anyone would want it, but
Hmm.
it's like it is definitely top 5 in August of all 25,000 songs in PraiseCharts. It's
Hmm.
right up there, and it's
Wow.
Christmas in August. So,
Wow. Wow.
anyways,
That's
and yeah,
amazing.
we're working on the Easter project now to be released in January because you always just got to be like you got to think about Easter in
Yeah.
August. You got to think about Christmas in March. I mean, we
Yeah.
are flipped on our heads. It's just
Yeah.
the life we live.
Right, right, exactly. I know.
Yeah,
I'm hearing so many people talking about they're planning their Christmas services. So it's like if you
yeah,
didn't have those resources, then it'd be passed by.
yeah.
They'd be
No,
like, well,
why not?
yeah,
There
wow.
you go.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, so Ryan, before we wrap up today,
Hmm.
it's so clear that you have a passion for worship leaders and you have a passion for the church and for helping and supporting. And I imagine that you talk to a lot of churches, you talk to a lot of
Hmm.
worship leaders. And, what are maybe a couple of things that pop into mind that you could give as encouraging words to our listeners who are worship leaders in volunteering volunteer supported ministries, small, medium
Hmm.
sized churches who, maybe are needing a little bit of encouragement today, what would you say to them?
Yeah. Well, first thought that comes to mind, and some of these are themes we've already talked about, but just finding a way to find a love for what you're doing, because if you don't love it, nothing else really, like, you can't fabricate the rest of it. I can't give you 6 points to do something amazing that you don't love, especially if it's involved in worship. If it's a
Mm,
chore and a burden, and some of that could be related to, maybe it's the people that, let's just not assume that you love all the people you're working with. So figuring out some of those relational things and figuring out how to, like, live in community with people who are
mm,
who are different than you, who have different skills, different preferences, different music, bents. We all have to do that. So I would say, of course, you want to have your love for the Lord and your honor of God in place, and then it's just like a love for the thing that you're doing, and just would want to encourage you with that. Uh,
mm,
I guess a second thing is, and we've also talked about this, is pursuing that freedom in music,
mm,
because I find that there's so much joy in playing when you feel like the way that you're playing is an expression of who you are, and you're not just there to mimic and sound like the recording. You could be inspired by the recording and even
mm,
play with the track or whatever, but I just always like to tell people, like, you you matter. The way your fingers touch that piano, or
mm,
those guitar strings, or whatever it is. It's an expression of who you are, and don't be satisfied with just mimicking, because you'll just constantly be thinking, am I doing it the way someone else did it? And eventually that gets exhausting
mm.
and tiring. So so I don't know. I'm just trying to think of, like, off the cuff. Those are two things,
Yeah.
really: pursuing the freedom in your music, and that it takes work. It takes
Mm,
practice. They're little examples, like, well, sure, in traffic, start listening to music. Start calling out the chord patterns. That's one little thing you could do, and it takes no time from your day. Or download some of our stage charts and then have them in front of you while you're listening to a song. These are exercises that you can go, wow, why am I seeing 146, 146, 1456? Seems like there's so much repetition. What does all that mean?
mm.
Because that's what worship music is. Well, it's what music is in general.
Yeah.
Is It's a way to express repeating patterns in creative ways. Because that the reason why that is because that's what connects into our hearts, right? Is when we start to become familiar with and comfortable with these
Mm,
patterns, it starts to kind of break down maybe emotional barriers, and it lets the truth seep in. That would be like my philosophy of music, of why spend my life dedicated to music, because the music is like, it breaks down the little walls, and then the lyrics deposit, you know it's like little
mm.
enemy fire. Except it's not enemy, it's the
Mm,
opposite of enemy, trying to get into the castle of your heart, right? And then
yeah.
let it percolate in there. So I'm mixing
Hmm.
metaphors. It's
Yeah.
terrible, but
It's like relief packages. Think-
right. There you go. Relief packages. But sometimes we got to get over the
Yes.
wall, or through the
Yes.
wall, or something. And so music, that's what music does. Is
Mm,
it Don't be afraid of letting music touch your heart, to move your emotions. That's the
mm,
whole point of it.
mm.
To make you excited, to make you, sorrowful, to make you, grateful, or trying to think of all different kinds of
Yeah.
emotions, the full range. And so, yeah,
Hmm.
those are a few
Wow.
thoughts I have.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible and so encouraging. I just know that a lot of people are going to be blessed and encouraged to hear that charge to be uniquely
Yeah.
you,
Great.
to
Thank you.
just
That's
lean
good.
into that, because
Yeah.
that is so powerful for all of us to remember. So
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you so much for being here today and for sharing your heart and your encouragement and all the things that Praise Charts has to offer. I know are a huge blessing. And for anybody who doesn't know, where can they find you? Are you on all socials at, that handle? Like
Yes.
how do they find you?
Mostly it's just at Praise Charts, anything, or at Ryan Dahl, most things. I don't have a lot of personal followers, but Praise Charts, you're welcome to find me in Facebook and see my personal life. I'm I don't hide a lot. I just kind of live out in front of people, but certainly PraiseCharts.com. And then we as you may know, Andrea, I also do YouTube interviews kind of like this. And I was saying to you, I find it less stressful being interviewed because I don't know what's coming. I just make it up as I go. But when I'm interviewing, it's like you got to be on, because what if they
Mhm.
freeze, or what if it gets awkward, or what if so many
Yes.
things can go wrong. So
Yes.
anyways, if you find Praise Charts, I think it's find Praise Charts in YouTube, and have been able to interview lots of the artists, like from Elevation and Integrity and Hillsong and Bethel and whatever, different
Mhm.
independent artists and authors, and I love talking to people like that. So that's
Amazing.
good. Yeah.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, for everybody listening or watching, we will put those things in the show notes for you too. So
Thank you.
you can just click away
Yeah.
and be
Do it.
on your way. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your
You're welcome.
time and encouragement.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening today, everybody. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit subscribe so you never miss another one. And we want to know what you love about the Overflow Worship podcast. So please leave a review and tell us. And if your platform doesn't have review options, just head on over to Apple Podcasts and you can leave a review there. And it's not only to help us know what you're enjoying, but it also helps us to deliver you more relevant content and to keep reaching other people. And don't forget that we have a free gift for you. My plan for creating an impactful, meaningful set list every single time while streamlining and working smart and saving you time is yours for free when you visit overflowworship.com/setlist checklist. All right, that's all for today. Thanks again. Keep on thriving.